My family stole my inheritance. They thought I would never know, but I found out. I couldn't believe it at first. The money was mine, something my parents had saved for me since I was a child. But somehow, when the time came, it disappeared. My uncle and cousins were acting strange. They laughed too much, shared secrets and whispers, and always avoided my questions. I tried to stay calm, but my heart was breaking. I had trusted them with my life, and they had betrayed me. I remember the day I realized the truth. I had asked my father for some documents about the inheritance. He smiled and said everything was fine, but his eyes looked guilty. That night, I started checking the bank statements, the papers, everything I could find. I stayed awake for hours, going through the details. Then I saw it. The money had been moved, transferred, hidden in accounts I had no access to. My family had lied to me. They had taken what was rightfully mine. I felt anger like never before. At first, I wanted to confront them. I imagined walking into the living room, slamming the papers on the table, and asking for an explanation. But then I realized it wouldn't help. They would deny everything, laugh at me, and make me feel powerless. I didn't want to look weak. I wanted them to pay, but in a way they would never forget. So I decided to wait, to watch, and plan my revenge carefully. I wanted this to be perfect, so they would regret ever crossing me. I started small. I watched them closely, noticing their routines, their secrets, the little things they bragged about. I learned who controlled what, who owed who favors, and who they trusted the most. I made notes in secret, saving every detail. They thought I was hurt and quiet, but in truth, I was gathering power. Every lie they told, every smile they faked, only made me more determined. I knew I could take them down without lifting a finger in anger. I would let the truth do it for me. It was hard to hide my feelings. I had to pretend I was the same person they had always known, smiling, helping, talking casually. They didn't suspect anything, but inside I was planning. I remembered every betrayal, every time they acted like I didn't matter. My inheritance was not just money, it was my life, my freedom, my future. And they had tried to steal that from me. They would not get away with it, not this time. I decided the best way to expose my family was to let them destroy themselves with their own lies. People like them always slip when they think they have won. All I had to do was stay calm and let the cracks open. I began collecting every message, every voice note, every financial paper I could reach. I watched their stories change every time I asked a simple question. I didn't fight them. I just quietly took notes. They thought my silence meant defeat, but it was the silence before a storm. My cousin Mark was the weakest link. He bragged too much and drank too much. One night at a family dinner, he talked about a big investment they had made with the money. He didn't say it directly, but his words were enough for me. After dinner, I followed him outside. He was already drunk, sitting on the steps. I sat next to him and acted innocent, pretending I didn't know anything. I asked how life was going, how work was. He laughed and said his life had never been better. Then he added, "Your inheritance helped more than you think." He didn't even realize what he had confessed. I pressed record on my phone quietly and let him talk. That recording became my first weapon. The more I waited, the more they exposed themselves. My aunt used my inheritance to buy a new car. She told everyone it was from her hard work, but she forgot one thing. The car papers had the exact date of the bank transfer from my funds. I copied them when she left the documents on the dining table one afternoon. Every piece was falling into my hands without effort. It was almost too easy. They had built their comfort on my future, but had no idea I was watching the walls collapse behind them. I didn't rush my revenge. I wanted it to be slow, calm, and unforgettable. I started visiting a lawyer secretly. He listened quietly as I showed him the records. His eyes widened. He told me I had more proof than most people bring in court. He asked me what I wanted to do. I didn't say punish them. I said, "I want everything that belongs to me, and I want them to learn a lesson." He nodded. He told me there were legal ways to freeze accounts, reclaim funds, and expose financial fraud. All I had to do was give the word. But I wanted something more powerful, so I waited a little longer. I acted friendly with my family, helped them with small tasks, joined their conversations, and smiled. They saw me as weak, emotional, innocent. They had no idea I was already preparing the final strike. I wanted them to be comfortable, to enjoy the money, to feel safe. The higher they climbed, the harder the fall would hurt. Then one day, while searching for more proof, I found the final betrayal. My mother, my own mother, had signed part of the inheritance papers behind my back. She had agreed to let my uncle manage my money. She didn't think I would ever learn the truth. My hands shook when I saw her signature. It wasn't just the money anymore. It was trust, love, family. Everything had been broken. In that moment, all my softness disappeared. My revenge was no longer a plan, it became a promise. I walked into my room, closed the door, and stared at all the evidence I had collected. Papers, screenshots, recordings, signatures. It was enough to bring all of them down in a single blow. But I didn't want a single blow. I wanted them to feel fear slowly, fear of losing everything, fear of being exposed, fear of the truth they tried to hide. So I decided the next step would be public, very public, something they could not erase, deny, or escape. And that was the moment I knew. The storm they feared the most was finally coming. I waited for the perfect day to begin the final step of my plan. It was a Sunday morning, and the whole family was gathered at my uncle's house for a small celebration. They were laughing, eating, showing off their new things bought with my future. I walked in silently, carrying a small folder in my hand. They barely looked at me. To them, I was still the quiet girl who would never fight back. They had no idea this was the last day they would ever underestimate me. I sat in the living room and watched them. My mother's smile, my uncle's loud voice, my cousin's jokes. They all looked so confident, so proud of themselves. I felt nothing now. No pain, no fear, just clarity. When everyone was finally settled, I stood up and placed the folder on the table. My uncle looked annoyed and asked what I wanted. I told him I needed 10 minutes of their time. He waved his hand like I was wasting it. That was the moment I knew my revenge would taste perfect. I opened the folder and calmly began laying out the documents: bank statements, property papers, transfer receipts, and the copy of the signature my mother had made behind my back. I placed the audio recording of Mark talking while drunk right in the middle. The room went silent. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Then my uncle stuttered, pretending he didn't know what any of it was. My mother's hands began shaking. My cousins looked terrified. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I simply said, "All of this goes to my lawyer tomorrow morning, unless you want to settle this right now." The panic in their eyes was the justice I had waited for. My uncle stood up and began talking fast, trying to blame my mother, my aunt, anyone but himself. My cousins kept saying, "It was not our idea." My mother started crying, asking me to talk privately, but I didn't move. I had spent too many nights crying alone while they enjoyed my money. Now they would face the reality they created with their own greed. I told them that everything they bought, everything they invested, everything they hid would legally return to me. Every account would be checked, every detail exposed. And if they refused, I would not hesitate to let the court decide. My mother begged me to think about the family. I looked at her and said, "You should have thought about the family before you betrayed your daughter." She had no answer. My uncle tried to threaten me, but I played the drunk recording loudly. His face turned pale. He knew the law would never be on their side. The evidence was too strong. Their lies were too many. Their fear filled the room like a storm they could not escape. In the end, they broke faster than I expected. They agreed to transfer everything back to me within days. My uncle avoided eye contact. My cousins apologized again and again. My mother cried like she had lost everything. Maybe she had. But she had also lost my trust, and that was something no amount of money could buy back. I left the house without looking back, the folder under my arm, the final chapter finally closed. When the money came back into my account, I didn't feel joy. I felt peace. A deep, quiet peace. I used some of it to move out far away from them. I bought a small apartment where no one could control me, betray me, or use me again. I started a new life with new rules. This time, I trusted no one blindly. And I promised myself something. If anyone tried to hurt me again, I would never stay silent. Silence was my disguise, but revenge was my power. They stole my inheritance, but in the end, I took back more than money. I took back myself.